8 ways to attack a chess king. From a bishop sacrifice you can play tonight to a queen sacrifice that dragged a king 8 squares across the board to its death. Start with the one you can use this week. The Greek Gift. Nice. 1930. Belgian master Edgard Cole spends 11 moves doing nothing special. Pawns, knights, a rook to the open file. Then the center opens and he plays bishop takes h7 check. The king has to take it. And most people misread what Cole just bought. The bishop is cheap. What he paid for is 3 moves in a row where black can only answer checks. Knight jumps to g5 with check, and black is already choosing between 2 losing squares. Retreat, and the queen arrives with mate. So the king steps up to g6, out in the open, with a new white piece landing on it every single move. The h-pawn runs at him. The rook takes on e6 with check. The knight comes back with check. Cole never gives black one free move to bring a defender across. 20 moves. Queen to b3, check, and O'Hanlon resigned. 3 things make this work. A bishop on the b1 to h7 diagonal, a knight ready to jump to g5, and a queen with a road to the h-file. If you have all 3, it isn't a gamble, it's arithmetic. Paris, 1858. Paul Morphy is in a private box at the opera, and 2 aristocrats sharing the black pieces keep interrupting him to make moves. What he plays next is still the clearest attacking lesson ever recorded. He trades in the center and opens the d-file. Black's queen comes out and blocks his own bishop. The black king never castles. That is the entire crime. Everything after it is the sentence. Watch what Morphy is willing to pay. Knight takes b5. A whole piece, spent to open one more line toward the king. Bishop check, black blocks with a knight, and that knight is now pinned to a king with nowhere to go. Castles queenside. The rook lands on d1 and the pin becomes fatal. Rook takes the knight. Black recaptures. The second rook comes to d1. He is hitting one pinned piece with everything he owns. Then the finish every chess book copies. Queen to b8, check. The knight is forced to take it. Rook to d8, mate, delivered by the last 2 pieces he had left. He gave away a knight, a rook, and his queen. He kept every open line. Castle on opposite sides and chess turns into a race. Your pawns run at their king, their pawns run at yours, and the only thing that matters is who is one move faster. Moscow, 1974. The candidates final. Anatoly Karpov is 23 years old, and Viktor Korchnoi is the man standing between him and a world championship match. Sicilian Dragon. Karpov castles long and starts pushing his h-pawn before his development is even finished. Push. Push again. And notice he is not chasing material, he is chasing the g6 square. Take that square away, and black's fianchetto bishop is guarding a house with no roof. Then comes the move that actually decides the game, and it is not a pawn. Bishop to h6. He offers to trade dark-squared bishops. Korchnoi cannot decline because that bishop is the only piece defending the dark squares around his king. The moment it leaves the board, white's queen owns every dark square near h8. The rest is technique. Karpov hands back an exchange to plant a knight on d5, opens the e-file, and the queen takes on h7 with check. 27 moves. Queen to h8, check, and Korchnoi resigned. Storm with the pawns if you want, but trade off the defender first. Now one with no sacrifice in it at all. San Remo, 1930. Alexander Alekhine is world champion. Across the board sits Aaron Nimzovich, the man who wrote the book on blockade, and he is about to be blockaded to death. The formation is called Alekhine's gun. 2 rooks stacked on the same file, queen behind them. Not the queen in front where it gets chased off. The queen last, where nothing can touch it and it never has to move. Alekhine builds it on the c file. Rook to c3. Second rook to c2. Queen to c1. 3 pieces, 1 line, aimed at a square black cannot defend twice. And then he stops attacking. He pushes a pawn to a 6 and the queen side freezes. He touches the other wing and that side freezes too. Count what Nimzovich still has at the end. A queen, a rook, 2 knights, 7 pawns. Now find him one move that does not lose material. There isn't one. 32 moves, and black resigns in a position where nothing has been captured for 6 moves in a row. Nobody teaches this version of attacking. You can win one without capturing a single piece, as long as you keep taking squares. 1 bishop for the h-pawn is the Greek gift. 2 bishops, one straight after the other, is a different animal. Amsterdam, 1889. Emanuel Lasker is 20 years old and 5 years away from the world title. Johann Bauer has castled, has no weaknesses, and owns 2 good bishops of his own. Move 15. Bishop takes h7, check. King takes, queen checks, king returns to g8. Nothing new so far. Now the second one. Bishop takes g7. This one is much harder to accept because it is not for a pawn. It is for the last piece of shelter the king has. Refuse it, and Bauer is a pawn down with a wrecked position anyway. So he takes, and his king is standing on g7 in an open field. Queen check, king back, and now the move it was all for. Rook to f3. Both bishops were sold to buy this one rook a clear road to the h-file. Lasker had that worked out before he ever took on h7. Rook h3 check. The queen is forced to interpose. The rook takes it, and Lasker comes out a full queen ahead. 2 bishops, gone in 3 moves, to open 1 file for 1 rook. Every book hands you the same rule. In the middle game, keep your king out of it. This is the game that broke that rule on purpose. Tilburg, 1991. Nigel Short against Jan Timman. Short has both rooks on the 7th rank and his queen deep in black's position, and his attack is completely stuck. He needs one more attacker, and he has nothing left to send. Except one piece nobody ever counts. Move 31. King to h2. Move 32. King to g3. Move 33. King to f4. The white king is now standing in the middle of an open board with queens still on. Look at what Timman has. A queen, 2 rooks, a bishop, 7 pawns. Now find him a single check. There is not one legal check in the entire position. Move 34. King to g5. Timman resigned. The threat was one more king step forward, and then queen to g7 is mate no matter what black does. 4 king moves. Everything else stood perfectly still. Your king is a piece, and in the right position, it is the one attacker on the board that nobody is allowed to capture. London, 1851. The most famous chess game ever played, and the finish you have seen 100 times probably never happened. Adolf Anderssen against Lionel Kieseritzky, a casual game during a tournament break. They call it the Immortal. Anderssen gives up a bishop on move 5, then a rook on g1, which he leaves hanging for 4 moves while he does other things. Then the second rook. By move 19, he is down a queen, 2 rooks, and a bishop. Everything a normal player counts as the game. What he owns instead is a knight on d5, a bishop swinging to d6, a pawn wedge, and a black king that is never moved and never will. The books then give you 3 more moves ending in bishop e7, mate. Checkmate delivered by 2 knights and a bishop, with his queen and both rooks sitting captured beside the board. Here is the part that gets left out. The record says Kieseritzky resigned before that. Those last 3 moves are what everybody agrees would have happened, not what happened. So the most reproduced checkmate in the history of the game is a position that was probably never on a board. The lesson survives the footnote. Anderssen treated material like money, and he spent every coin he had. And the one that ends the list, London, 1912. Edward Lasker against George Thomas. A casual game with a clock running. 11 moves in, Thomas is completely fine. Then he moves his queen 1 square, and the game becomes the most absurd finish ever recorded. Queen takes h7, check. A whole queen, and the king must take it because there is no other legal move on the board. Then the machine starts. Knight check, king up. Knight check, king up. Pawn check, bishop check, rook check. Every move forced. Every move driving the king 1 more square down the board into white's half, past white's pawns. It began on g8, castled, defended, completely safe. 6 checks later it is standing on g1, in the corner white castled out of, surrounded by white's own pieces, and it walked the entire way by itself. The mate is king to d2, checkmate delivered by the king. And one detail the engines confirm. In that exact position, castling queenside is also legal, and castling queenside is also mate. 2 different checkmates in the same position, and one of them is written as castles. Remember where we started. The Greek gift drags a king out by 1 square. This one dragged it out by 8.